I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been reading all the war, and I've been shutting down the stores. Yeah, cause when it rains and it pours, yeah, and I'm ready for some more. Yeah, and I've been reading.
Welcome to Put That Coffee Down. This is the Freight Sales Podcaster for Closers. My name is Kevin Hill. Welcome to an exciting hour that we have. I have my special guest co-host with me and then another special guest coming in about 20-25 minutes, and we have a lot of ground to cover. Let me introduce Chris Jolly once again, the Freight Coach, joining me once again. There on his hat, you can read it. If you can see it on the screen. It's too far away for me to read it, but I'm sure a lot of people out there can read it. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great. I will refrain from doing the Wayne's World extreme close-up right there, just to put my face up in front of it. I'm doing good, Kevin.
Go ahead.
I was saying I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to today's episode, and you know, just bringing the heat like always.
Bringing the heat. Bringing the heat. And Wayne's World, there was a commercial at the Super Bowl that they reignited Wayne's World for a Super Bowl commercial. You know, Wayne and Garth are in the basement again.
Oh yeah. I must have missed that one because I shut the game off at half because I just knew where that one was going. Brady was just on fire yesterday.
He was.
And there was the defense too shut down Kansas City. So it was like I knew where that game was going. I didn't finish the second half.
Yeah, you know, it was a rough one for Kansas City and Kansas City fans. It certainly was, and something that you don't really see very much is Mahomes not doing anything. I think it was the third quarter by the time he got 100 yards passing, if I'm correct on that.
Yeah, I honestly, it's like, I think back a couple of games when he got his bell rung pretty good. I think that was sitting in there. He looked nervous at times, rightfully so. I would have probably crumbled and fallen apart if I would have got hit that hard. But, you know, it's, understandably so. And, but that's not to say that the Chiefs are not going to come back in full force next year.
They're going to be back next year. They're going to be healthier. You know, Mahomes, he was a little banged up, and not to make excuses or anything, but you know, Kansas City is going to be a contender again next year, and it'll be fun because it is fun. You know, Tom Brady's the GOAT, but Mahomes is fun to watch. He's just fun to watch when he's on. So, yeah. So today, we talk about top 1%. They're the greatest, the GOAT. You know, the NFL players. They're the top of the game. We're going to talk to Scott Ingram today. He's the founder of Sales Success Media. He has a podcast that just looks at the top 1% of performers, quota-carrying performers at different companies in all different types of industries. So he's got the podcast. He's got the books, you know, Sales Success Stories. He's got a series of books that he's published looking at those top 1%ers. So we're going to learn, we're going to see what the top 1%ers do. We're going to learn more about that with Scott Ingram coming up here in the next few minutes. But as always, let's kick it off and thank our sponsor to begin with, right? Well, let's do that. And thank you to our sponsor, Zimbles. You want to crush your numbers, so stop random prospecting. Zimbles can tell you who is spending on shipping and gives you those leads instantly, taking your sales process from a 95% failure rate to a 50% success rate. Go to start.zimbles.com/free trial and sign up for a demo today. So once again, you can go to start.zimbles.com/free trial for that. And also on Wednesday, we have FreightWaves has the Health and Pharma Supply Chain Summit coming up. It's a one-day full event all about moving, distributing, procuring raw materials for pharmaceuticals and healthcare. And I think we're probably going to be talking about the vaccine quite a bit. So we have some great guests lined up. The president of Global Forwarding Expedite from XPO, Katrina Liddell. I talked to her earlier or late last week about vaccine distribution. So we have several great segments focused solely on that. Do you ever get into pharmaceutical shipping whenever you're a broker?
I mean, I never personally did. I think that was I was actually talking with Andrew Boyle, Boyle Transportation, for a past episode of my podcast there. And Yeah, it's a different ball game. It really is, and it's great to but I think like you can take those principles though and apply them to your freight that you have because it's like they just take it to the next level. There's a
Hmm.
that high visibility. I mean, legitimate life or death style situations. Now, granted, that's not the same for all styles of freight, but I think like if you take that and improve your SOPs and everything, it's only your customer's gonna win, and that's who should be positioned to win when you're in sales, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, yeah. If you move all freight like you do pharmaceuticals, you're going to do very well.
yeah.
We did a research project on that this last year, just about the visibility, the delicacy of all the materials, right? And we see that with vaccine, where it has to be stored at negative 90 something degrees, right? I mean, and if it varies too much from that for a certain length of time, it spoils and you throw it out. So you have that. You have the high value. You have other counterfeiting type of issues that you can run into if you don't have your SOPs in place and are very strict and guidelines. You have the security personnel that sometimes will follow you around or follow the shipment around. And it's just a very complicated uh, commodity to move.
Yeah. No, exactly, as it should be, like, you can't just like, that's not something that I think we can all agree that's not something we want on an open load board, like, 40,000 pounds of pharmaceuticals coming your way, like, that's not what we can have out there, and, so it's like, you can learn from that, though, you can learn from that and apply that to your everyday, I think, and,
Mhm.
like, in taking those added steps, because in my opinion, every shipment should be just as important, like, whether it's bales of trash or life-saving pharmaceuticals, you should treat it the same because you are providing a service to somebody. It's not your right. Like you didn't just wake up one day and then you just get all of this freight, like you have to earn it. And if you worked hard enough to earn it, continue to grow with it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right with that. Well, let's go on to our sales hot tip of the week, and this comes from a couple conversations I had last week, where salespeople had called me and pitched me their products, and Chris, there's salespeople that they talk for half an hour without taking a breath. That they do.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not even there. And someone called me, and I was somewhat interested in the product. I wanted to get more information. By the time 10 minutes into it, I hadn't got a chance to ask any questions or clarify anything. I was completely confused. Didn't really slow them down. I asked a question finally, and though they did answer it and just went like a rocket for the next 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't get off I was ready to get off the phone. I couldn't wait to get off the phone. I actually put it down for a little bit. I was downstairs with Andrew Cox, and he was laughing at me because I'm just sitting there on the phone. There's not much, and trying to talk and just being talked over. So, oftentimes the customer will tell you exactly what you want. Just shut up and listen. Let them tell
I
you what
mean,
they want.
that is what you guys should put on a t-shirt right there. Just shut up and listen. Because I mean, it's true though. And it's like, I think that even when they like just say they, it's a no today, but they'll tell you how they want you to come back, and how they want you to continue to be there. Because I think like it's always just a matter of when. It's always a matter of
Hmm.
when your product or service will be of need. And you need to listen. You need to listen to what they're saying because you can stay present in front of your prospects without continuously pitching, and you can add value to them. Because if your product or service truly solves a problem, there's a ton of information out there that your prospects need. So provide that information to them. Help them better understand it, not just continue to talk and talk and talk and talk.
Yeah, and then this was an entrepreneur, so I get that. I understand you're super excited about your product. It's complicated. It's hard to navigate that, but take a breath. Let people catch up to you because you work in the freight coach, right? You work in the freight
Yeah.
coach. What you're doing, immersed 24/7. People that you talk to outside of that are starting from square one, and it's one of those great talents is to beat the curse of knowledge, right? To beat the curse of knowledge, to be able to sit down and explain things, question and answer is very important, and to be able to explain very high level things that you know really well at a very simple, first grade or square one type of level.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. I have everything on the line, like, and especially as an entrepreneur and a startup, I have
Hmm.
everything on the line too, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
if this doesn't work out, I got some tough decisions I got to make. But, it's like you need to hear the truth though. And I think like that's the best piece of advice I think I ever got in sales in general is that feedback, even though it might be critical and not what you want to hear, you need to hear it because otherwise you're going to continue down that path of thinking that it's all right to talk over your prospect for 30 minutes and then nothing's accomplished. And then you just lost a customer for life at that point, essentially.
I essentially did, and so you're getting your business up off the ground is
Yeah.
consulting, right? If you listen, people will tell you exactly what they want to purchase from you, and it might not be something
Hmm.
that you have or that you've designed right now. It's a service, it's consulting, so you have some leeways to design what people are looking to buy. And it kind of goes back to what's more important, the product first or the audience first. If you have the audience first, you get the feedback from the audience, and maybe you don't even have a product. But if you have a
Yeah.
following audience, email, subscriber base, sending out free information, people will tell you exactly what they need and what they can't find. And it's
Mhm.
then very easy to go in and design something that people will buy.
No, definitely. And I think that you can take that, and even if your product or service offering doesn't achieve what your prospects are looking for, and you can put them in contact with somebody who does actually do that and help them, they're going to remember you. They're going to buy from you in the future. This is a long term play, and you have to look at it through a 12-year lens, essentially, not a 12-second lens, because the problem with fast money is it comes fast and it goes fast. And you have to be invested in this process. That because that's what it is. And especially when you're a service provider, regardless of what industry you're in, your job is to provide solutions. It's not always going to be your solution and your product, but know people who it does balance it out, and you can toss business your way because guess what? There's another advocate for you on the street. All right, there's another person who's going to be like, yeah, you know what, our stuff doesn't work, but Chris Jolly, his stuff does work for you. I'm going to put you in contact with him. It's all about building that network up.
It is, it's all about building that network up. And if you're selling to shippers right now, it's very complex. Freight sales is very complex. Each shipper is
Yeah.
different. They have their own needs. They have their own distribution networks, their own manufacturing process, their own distribution. Everything is different, and it's a very complex sell. So if you just keep your mouth shut a little bit, ask a good question here and there, find out exactly what they need because it's going to be pretty highly customizable for each
Yeah.
situation. So if you can design a package that works for both your company and your prospect or your customer, then that's a win-win, and things are going to deals are going to get closed.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. That's what you got to do every day.
It is. It is. So Chris C says, no salesperson ever listen themselves out of a sell. That's a very good point. You can't listen yourself out of a sell. Can't. Brian
Very
Ritchie
true.
says, amen to that. Chris Seeds, Rhonda's here. Yeah, that approach can save both parties time. Back and forth conversation is the key. Everyone loves back and forth. No one likes someone who goes off for 20 minutes and just talks. So Phil Corbett is here. So hello to everybody out there. Let's go to marketing, and this is from a co-host here at Put the Coffee Down every once in a while,
Yeah.
Blythe Brumleve from Brumleve
Nice.
Brands, Digital Dispatch, Freight School Playbook. She had tweeted out this weekend, since I guess the Jaguars aren't playing in the Super Bowl, surprise, surprise. Uh, so she says, hold up. We got some people out there thinking sending a calendar link is bad etiquette. I personally hate the back and forth of what day time works for you. Emails. I think we've all been there. Send me a link so I can just instantly book an appointment that works for both of us. What are your thoughts on that, Chris Jelly?
So this is I go back and forth on this because I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like if I'm selling to you, Kevin, I have to be open to your time. So it is like I need to be putting my foot forward to establish that time. Now, if you reached out to me though, and then you know what, you might have this opinion, and it is easier for you just to be like, hey, just yes, I like what you're saying, choose a time. But I don't know, like I think it's almost off-putting on the first point of contact to be like, hey, this is my product, everything's cool. Book a time to talk with me. Here, go take this calendar link and book a time to talk. But I also, That's like I'm trying to play on both sides because I see the value of it too. Because like with Blythe, what she says is true. I don't like the back and forth dialogue, and it's like if I do, read what you've sent me or we've talked on the phone, and there's some form of contact there, and you're like, hey, can I send you my calendar? And then you choose a time. All right, that's one thing in my opinion, but it's like there is that fine line of are you just pushing it too much?
I think there is that fine line, but whether you're sending a calendar invite or you're saying, hey, us jump on a call or let's jump on a call, it's still the same technique, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
an invite or I guess manual, I don't know what you call it, the old school type of back and forth. I mean, it's still, there's a polite
Yeah.
way to do both of those, and there's an optimal way to either do an invite or suggest some times. But the back and forth, I've lost a lot of prospects. You lose their attention if you can't book a meeting, right? If you can't book
Yeah.
a meeting and you're going back and forth and they lose their attention, you lose their attention. I've lost enough of those to say, just going to send you my invite. And I think over the years, I think right now, certainly after 2020, maybe I blame everything on 2020, or I use that for my trends of everything in sales, is that just send the invite. I think
Yeah.
I'd rather get an invite because I just want to go in and see when I'm free and when they're free and just book it right there. I don't want to go back and forth. I get too many
Yeah.
emails and Slack messages and LinkedIn messages every day to create 4 or 5 more just to pick out a time. Just send me your link. I'll send you my link. I have noticed that corporate America, a lot of freight brokers they don't like that or they don't purchase Calendly. And there's other services out there, but I'm familiar with Calendly. It's $10 a month. It makes you more productive. It's easy to see an ROI on there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely see both sides of it. I really do because I don't want to go back and forth either. But I guess it's like it. You got to learn to know your audience at that point, and maybe I don't know. I don't know if there's a secret sauce of throwing out a feeler to see if they'd be okay with that because I do see how some people could get offended by that, where it's like, what I'm just supposed to block out a time of my day to talk to you because you were so gracious to send me this email. I don't know. I can
Uh,
see both sides. I can see the old school way of thinking about it too.
well, I mean, you're blocking out time no matter what. This is just an easier
Yeah.
way to block out time. You're not really blocking. I'm saying, hey, this is when I'm free. Just pick a time that works for you, and we'll jump on the phone.
Yeah. No, I agree with that one too, though. I guess I'm trying to play devil's advocate as much as possible here. I like I said, I see both sides of the fence, and I like both because it is extremely efficient. Hey, you know what? Let's have it and send it out there and do something. But I don't know. I guess it's like my gut tells me this, Kevin. If I want to engage with you a little bit first before I send that, because it's like I want to, I guess, feel it out to see if it's even going to be a fit.
Well, yeah.
Like what if this person on the other end is just not somebody who I would want to deal with, and then you're like 5 minutes, like 30 minutes into a cold call the other day,
Hmm.
and you're like, this was a giant waste of time. I don't know. There's no perfect solution here. I see both sides of it. But I personally, me speaking, I want to try and engage with them a little bit first before I start trying to set up a time to talk with
Okay, well, and that's fair. That's fair.
them. Yeah.
I can see that point where you want to engage. Make sure it's worth your time to set that up. So maybe not just the first contact throw
Yes.
out invite, whether it's a link or saying, hey, does it make sense to set up a call, right? So the
Yeah.
old school way or the link, maybe that is a little bit too direct sometimes. I will say this, so if there's something like Calendly, maybe it's something else that's a few dollars here, a few dollars there, your company doesn't want to expense it, is it worth, if it's really going to make you productive, if you think you can close sales with it, should you just pay for it out of your own pocket and say the heck with it?
I don't know. I don't think you should. If you're working for somebody else, I don't think you should incur any expenses of your own while working for somebody else. Like
What,
I've done that, where it's like I thought I was doing people a favor by just paying for it out of my own pocket. And then I lost money out of the deal and there was no way of recouping it. So it's like I feel like if you're I don't know, if I I would never want one of my employees or team members to pay for anything that I could benefit from as a business, whether it's something as small as a $10 a month calendar Calendly subscription or not. As a business owner, I would never want them to incur any additional expenses. That's on me. If they come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to try this out," I guess I'm just more open to it. Like, because if
Hmm.
it makes us more productive and profitable, by all means, I'll spend the money because it's an investment. It's a constant investment when you're running your own operation. Every dollar you have is an investment at that point.
It is. Every dollar you have is an investment at that point. And I, as a business owner too, I wouldn't want any of my employees incurring
Yeah.
costs for things that make them more productive. But you know what? There are other businesses out there who don't take that high level view that Chris Jolly and I do, right?
True.
So
Very
if you
true.
have a tool, $50, you're saying, man, if I just pay for this out of my own pocket, $50 a month, I can make $1,000 more in commission. Would you do it?
I'm every day of the week. I
Yeah, I know,
personally
right?
would, but but again, I'm just not at the expense of anybody else.
Well,
Like if
yeah.
it's your decision, and I mean, because it's like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I've always been fortunate where like the companies that I've worked for, they've shared that mentality that I had too. They're like, no, no,
Mhm.
no, no, you can't pay for any. I want you to expense absolutely everything, even if it's a $2 bottle of water at the airport. You're expensing that $2 bottle of water. So I don't know. I guess I don't have the best judgment on this one, Kevin, because I've never brought an expense report to somebody. And they're like, we're not paying that $4.99 monthly subscription for you.
Well, I know, there's some, when I was a freight broker and an employee, I would have that attitude, Chris. I would be like, well, I'm not paying
Yeah.
for it. I'm not paying for anything out of my pocket. But since I started my own business and it's just like, man, if it's going to make me money, I'm going to go do it. I'll pay for it. Doesn't really matter. And Bonnie Scott's a founder here on LinkedIn. Yes, you should. I paid for an app that planned my routes for me when I worked for Daylight. It was so worth it. If it's going to make your life easier, if it's going to make you more productive, and certainly if it's going to mean, if you can make $1,000 more a month in commission, if you got something for $50, why wouldn't you? It might not be fair. It might not be fair, but yeah.
Just slip it in as a dinner expense, but there you can make up your $50 some way. No, I'm kidding. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that and actually do that.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, Scott is in. So that's good. We will bring Scott up right now then. Let's jump in and see what Scott thinks of that first and foremost. If you'd had a chance to listen beforehand, Scott.
I did. Am I on?
You are. Yes, you are on.
Beautiful. I showed up with my cup of coffee in hand so I can put this down, right?
Yes. You got to put that coffee down because coffee is for closers only, right?
Awesome. So I've got a couple of thoughts on all that stuff, right? So I think when it comes to the calendar scheduling type stuff, you just have to try it, right? And see if it fits in, see what type of response that you get, see if that resonates. I'm a fan. I don't enjoy the back and forth really on either end, right? As a prospector or a prospectee, let's just get this on the calendar, and I'm happy to control my own schedule and just look at a calendar and grab a link. And hopefully your company is willing to invest in you and the tools that you need to be successful. But sometimes you have to take the bull by the horns and invest in yourself and try out these tools and see if it's going to work for you. So every day of the week, I'm gonna try something and invest in myself if my company is not willing to do it, if I think it's going to make a difference for me.
Thank you, Scott. Definitely. So let me introduce Scott. Scott Ingram. He's the founder of Sales Success Media. He's also the host of the Sales Success Stories and Inspired Marketing podcasts, and a publisher of a series of sales success books. So there's multiples of those, aren't there, Scott?
There are a couple, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you hold down a day job too? Because on LinkedIn it says that you're also the account director for Relationship One. Is that another one of your businesses, or is that what we would call a day job?
No, that is my day job. So all the podcasts and the books and the event, the Sales Success Summit that we do every October here in Austin, that is one giant side hustle. During the day, I carry a multi-million-dollar quota for a professional services company.
That's fantastic. I forgot about the events too. So you have a complete media company with events, publishing, podcasting, and a day job.
All of the above, and a family.
And a family.
And some people say they don't have enough time in the day. Listen to that.
There's always enough time.
Yeah.
I know.
You just got to have a process to manage it all.
So Scott, how did you get into your media business? What kind of incentivized you or drove you to create this?
So I have always been a student of sales. I've always consumed a lot of books and webinars and podcasts and other content. And the thing I realized a number of years ago as I got ready to start this show is so much of this content is coming from people who haven't carried a quota themselves in years and sometimes decades. And, the world continues to change. 5 years ago, we didn't have calendar scheduling links. We didn't need to have this conversation because that wasn't a thing. So I wanted to hear from the folks who were having the best results, who were at the very top of their game, the top performers in companies. So sales success stories, I only interview active individual contributor, quota carrying professionals who are either the outright number one top performers in their companies, or I joke, I'm willing to settle for the top 1%. So when I find somebody who's number 3 on a team of 800 at Microsoft, we'll call that good enough and we'll bring them on the show, because I just wanted that additional perspective of the people that are in the trenches right now to understand what's working for them. What are they doing to find extraordinary levels of success? And they're going to go back to that job during the day and not try and sell me a keynote speech or their training program or anything else like that. So it was just a different voice that I felt like was missing in the marketplace at the time.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you need to hear those different perspectives along those lines, because I just think that let me ask you this, Scott. Is there one common trait amongst them all that they all share, or is this something that it's just so individual that they all, because like what works for me might not work for you, and so on and so forth. So is there something that kind of connects them all, you think, or is it that's not possible? They're all so unique in their own right.
So yes and yes, but more the latter, right? So
Okay.
I think there are some common underlying things around their mindset and the level of discipline and the overall mentality they have around this, and a lot of that is just, this is a profession, this is a craft, this is something you have to work at to get great at. But how they're getting there stylistically, they're all over the place. I've talked to a lot of folks who lean much more towards introversion and aren't the stereotypical, I'm an extraordinary extrovert and I'm the life of the party and that type of thing. There's a lot of people that do very, very well in sales that are super thoughtful and super internalized and strategic around the things that they do. And I think that is kind of the common trait. The very best have figured out what is it about them that is unique. What are their unique strengths? How can they take those things, develop those things, and just be themselves in their sales process? And that's what typically leads to greatness, right? You can't be somebody else. You can't do it somebody else's way. You've got to find your way. And I think that's ultimately the most common thread, if you will. But again, the nuance is all in those details and how each individual gets there.
That's really insightful, right? So the one thing they really have in common is identifying their strengths and perfecting those. Is that and certainly not on your weaknesses, not dealing with your weaknesses maybe, but really focusing in on where they're strong, where they're different, where they can compete, and really running with that.
Yeah, that's the whole game. And the weakness thing, I think you can go on both sides of that, right? It's some folks say that there's so much more opportunity in piling on to your strengths that you don't even need to worry about the weaknesses. The way I think about it, though, is sales is a team sport. Long gone are the days of the lone wolf, right? You've got an entire, especially in B2B sales, right? You've got an entire team around you. I think you've got a lot of opportunities to you need to be aware of those weaknesses. You have to have a very high degree of self-awareness to understand what am I good at, where am I weak, and where do I maybe need help to shore some things up. And maybe I'm working with my sales manager to offload some of those things, or there's somebody else on my team that can do that. Maybe, heck, speaking of investing in yourself, I have a full-time virtual assistant. Maybe you're doing something like that is going to make you that much more productive and just take things off of your plate that is not a good productive use of your selling time.
Yeah, I mean, time is the most valuable resource, right? So the more you can strip out non-productive or non-revenue generating activities from your daily schedule, the more productive you're certainly going to be. I have Davin Corzin, supply chain innovator here. He says Scott embodies the phrase "sleep is for the weak." LOL. So quite a busy guy. I was over the weekend. I listened to your most recent podcast, and I can't remember who it was with, but I'm sure you can because it was with one of your sponsors. And you were talking about the trends of video and sales, and it kind of reminds me of how I reached out to you a couple months ago. It was LinkedIn, but it was a sales message or a video message that I had recorded, and I've been experimenting with that more and more. And it was a great discussion that you guys had. Can you kind of describe some of your thoughts on sales or video and sales?
Yeah, happy to. So that conversation was with Tyler Lessard, who's the VP of marketing at Vidyard, who's been one of our great sponsors for quite some time. And they have an incredible video selling platform. And the beauty is they've got a Chrome plugin. It's free. You can use it as much as you want. So a quick little short link for you. If you go to top1.fm, top1.fm/V, that'll take you to that plugin where you can get it. And I'll equate it to, since that conversation, I celebrated a birthday last week. And my birthday experience, I think there's a lot that we can learn about prospecting and about what the experience is for the people that you're selling to on the other end when you look at what is it like when you have your birthday in the day of social media. And I joke I'm a conscientious Facebook objector, so I don't have to deal with it on Facebook. But my LinkedIn experience was I got something like 300 messages, and probably 90% of those just said happy birthday, ! Not happy birthday, Scott. They all looked 100% the same, completely undifferentiated. Right. And I think that's the reality of most prospecting messages, completely undifferentiated. There's nothing about this particular outreach message that tells me that you know who I am or what my role is or what my company does or anything. Right. This is completely generic. It works for anybody. Some people, a handful of people would send funny gifts or they personalized the message a little bit more, right, and shared something. 3 people, so literally 1%, sent me a video. And those are the ones I remember. I remember Elias. I remember Margie, right? I remember Jack. So it's this opportunity. I feel like the bar from a prospecting perspective, right? The bar to be in the top 10 to 20% of prospectors is 10 seconds of research. That's all it takes. And in a lot of cases, for the garbage that I get, in those 10 seconds of research, you would realize, oh, Scott's not my prospect. I don't even need to send him this message, right? Because they didn't do their research. They didn't figure out who I am, what my role is, what I'm up to, right? It's all out there. We all put it on our LinkedIn profile. So taking that 10 seconds, but to really put yourself in that top 5%, that top 1% is just taking a little bit of initiative and really showing, hey, Kevin, I did my research. I just spent a couple of minutes on your LinkedIn profile, and I wanted to share this video with you and tell you about X, Y, and Z. That's all it is. And the beauty is, I think everybody says, oh, but that doesn't scale. That's why it's so great, right? Because oh, this isn't some canned generic thing. Scott recorded this message for me. It's about me. I'm going to take the 30 seconds or a minute to watch this, and I'm very, very likely to reply because I appreciate that he at least put in the effort, even if I'm going to tell him to go pound sand.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing though, is it's like even in freight brokerage, where you got 50,000 people going after all the exact same accounts. It's like taking that 10 seconds to send a personalized message. Although it seems so easy on the surface, so many individuals are so against it because it's different, and it makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable because it's like if you can't use this line, and I think this is the overwhelming reason why most people don't. I don't like the way my voice sounds on video. Well, guess what? It sounds the exact same on the phone, you guys. Like there's no differentiating factors there. So it's like you got to do it, and after a while, you're gonna get comfortable with it. Like find the comfort in those little uncomfortable situations. It's gonna help you push forward because you're right. 99%, you said it best, out of the 300 messages. And now to put that into a direct correlation to all the freight brokers that are out there, there's at least 50 people every day reaching out to your prospects as well. If you take 10 seconds to record yourself just stating your name, introducing yourself, something, and like it's not a complex message, it's very like it's a very basic thing, but that's different. They're going to remember you that way.
Well, and different is the point. Because the
Yes.
alternative is what? You sound like everybody else. There's no differentiation. You're like, well, that's not how I'm going to choose who to do business with. Like, which one of these generic random messages, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, here you win? No, I'm gonna talk
No
to the
wheel of
guy
fortune.
that took a
There's no wheel.
little bit of effort, showed a little bit of initiative, and looks like, hey, this guy actually gives a crud about me.
And when we say it's not scalable for the amount of people that you can reach because it's customized, but once that video gets watched, it's shareable within that organization. So that part of it is scalable, much more scalable than trying to reach out to every single person.
Yeah, absolutely. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, like, don't focus on like there's no perfect message that you can put out there. Like, just be you. Like, that's one thing I'm hearing you say a lot, Scott, right now is be you, you know? And it's like, do that. Put together a message, make it quick to the point, and just do it because that's better than you trying to rehearse it, over rehearse it, and trying to. It's just like the generic happy birthday, lazy, hit that. Here's your auto response in LinkedIn to say happy birthday only. It's 10 times better than that if you trip over your own words, lose a little bit of your train of thought, whatever that is, because it's you. We're all human beings. Remember that.
Yeah, I mean, be you is the game. And I encourage people, don't overthink this. Don't script this. Just hit record. And if you flub and you trip over your words, it makes it that much more real because none of us are good at this.
True.
It really does, and it just takes practice. It just takes getting out there and doing it. I mean, I never did video until a couple years ago, and Duna and I, we had some people doing video on our podcast last year, and just turning my phone around and putting something on LinkedIn made me a little bit nervous. I was a little trepidatious about it, and we do this show on TV every week, so. If it's a little bit of a hurdle for me, it's going to be a hurdle for a lot of people. But the best thing to do is just to do it and don't script it. Don't think about it. If you flub, no one cares.
Yes.
You'll still make sales if you're flubbing.
Well, and sales is about doing uncomfortable things. And it's a muscle that you can train. So if you're uncomfortable with the idea of doing this, it's probably more reason why you should do it. To me, when I get really nervous or I get fearful about doing something or I'm intimidated by a particular executive that I need to reach out to, that's usually a sign that I really need to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree with that. And I mean, so like I put stuff out all the time on LinkedIn. I do daily videos and everything else. And I mean, I can hear it in my voice on the very first couple of ones that I've done. I was nervous. But you know what? I'm a human being. I have emotions, just like the rest, but you just got to keep pushing through with it at the end of the day. Like, because like the reality is either they like you or they don't. Okay. So like what is the 15 seconds going to cost you? It's not going to cost you anything. If anything, it's a 15-second investment to improve to when it does hit with the right audience, you're going to sound that much better. So look at it that way. Flip it around a little bit. It's not a negative.
There you go.
Yeah, and Krista Avery here. This is exactly what I've been working on, embedding a short video of me recapping some of the things I know about them and interest to learn more. So good job, Krista, integrating video in. So Scott, we talked about personality traits of the top 1% or maybe, working on their strengths. Is there, when you go through the sales process from prospecting to presentation or setting a meeting to follow up to closing, which one of these in the process are the top 1%, maybe the best at or focus on the most?
I don't know that there's one thing. I think there's maybe two things from an overarching perspective. One is focusing on that process, having a process that you follow. Because if you do have a consistent process that you're following, as you think about each of those components, as you think about each of those steps, every single place is an opportunity to improve. right? So if you're measuring and quantifying these things, now you can start to get a sense for, hey, you know what? I'm not doing a great job of I'm doing a really good job on the front end. I'm getting meetings. I'm getting maybe even second meetings. After the demo, things are following off for me. Or I'm not converting enough of the proposals that I'm putting out there. Having that awareness and seeing that and going, oh, something's amiss here. That's an opportunity for me to work on that. So again, maybe I'm going to work with my manager. Maybe I'm going to find a mentor. Maybe I'm going to reach out to I'm a huge fan of this. Nobody thinks about this. Turn your customers, turn your prospects into your mentors. Get super curious about them. Ask them, say, hey, look, I am really just trying to get better at understanding this industry and people that are in your position. Would you be willing to spend some time with me and just teach me? I'd like to have some conversations, and then run this stuff by them. Say, here's what I'm doing. Here's how I'm positioning this. Does that resonate for you? Or if you were in my shoes, would you describe that differently? Nobody does this stuff, but it's easy, right? And it builds incredible relationships. You just have to be humble and admit, I don't know everything, right? I'm still trying to figure this out, but I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to understand you and be able to serve you better. Would you be willing to help me with that? And maybe it's a customer that you've worked with a few times and you want to start there. It doesn't need to be a pure play prospect, but just powerful stuff if you'll be brave and reach out and ask for the help.
Chris?
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, so that's one thing that I work with a lot on my clients on is it's like, you know what, like trying to just engage a little bit more, like when you're faced with an objection and you know what, whatever, if it doesn't work out, ask the why a little bit, ask to like help you improve because you know what, just because they're not going to work out as our prospect, for example, we can take what they tell us and bring it back to our current customer base and improve our relations that way. Because you know what, you do need to hear the hard truth sometimes. You do need to hear what's not working and you need to implement that and change. At the end of the day, because it's like if your pitch is falling short, it's not the prospect, you guys, it's you. All right. And you have to accept that and you have to make the necessary changes to move forward. Otherwise, you're probably going to be out of a job or having some very difficult conversations with your leadership at that time.
Yeah. And the objection thing in particular, I'm not a big fan of the concept of objection handling. Right. I think that you'll be much, much better served if you think of it as objection understanding. Right. You get an objection, ask questions. Your goal is what's underlying that? Why do they think that? Why is that a concern? Just ask why a bunch of times. And then you're going to really get somewhere and they're going to feel heard. Like how annoying is it to say, to put up an objection to somebody and then just come right back at you. Right. And like, no, here's why that doesn't matter. Wait, you're saying what I think doesn't matter? That's that's not working for me, right? But if instead you're really working to understand them, now we build real relationship. Now we build some trust. Now we start to get to the bottom of, oh, I understand what you're asking. Well, what about this? Or could we solve that way? And now it becomes we're collaborating. We're working together to solve your process and not in this adversarial buyer-seller relationship.
It's almost like a consultant relationship whenever it gets to collaboration, and it feels more like you're a consultant rather than that buyer-seller type of personas. Nick Romer here is blowing up the chat, agreeing with everything we say up here right now. So, Scott, what part of the sales process is your favorite?
That's a great question. I am. So the last full interview that I did was epic in length. It was something like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I interviewed a woman named Katie Jane Bailey. And she had the greatest line ever. She said, discovery is a lifestyle, not a stage. And to me, that really resonates, right? Because discovery isn't that one time that you have that conversation and you ask questions. It's all the time. It's always, right? It's always asking questions and working to understand and understand what's changed, right? Because we don't live in a static world. What you learned in the quote unquote discovery call 2 weeks ago, who knows what might have changed between now and then. So for me, it is that discovery lifestyle and just working to continue to understand, to continue to collaborate through the process. And I think if you do that, again, we come back to you build trust, you build great relationships. It makes the quote unquote closing that much easier.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with like I think that we think we win almost when you close a deal, for example. And like the way that I'm taking that is you should be in a constant pursuit of discovering with your customers. It just because they've agreed to do business with you doesn't mean they're a customer for life. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you need to continuously earn their business every single interaction that you have with them and never place a label of, oh, that's closed, we won, I'm done, give me my commission on to the next one. I don't believe in that. You have like I love that line a lot. You should be in that constant pursuit of earning their business.
Well, and I don't even like the term closing, right? Because closing indicates like this is an end, we're finished. To me,
Yeah.
closing, that's like the starter pistol went off. That's where the real relationship begins. Now, great, we signed a piece of paper. Now we have an opportunity to do actual work together. And if you're doing business well, that's just the first step. Now we've got to deliver on what we said we were going to do and earn the right to have access to more business and to earn the right for them to introduce us to other people and do reference calls for us and become advocates for us. That's the game. This whole idea of we're closed and you're done, that is just so antiquated. It's not the way that the world works, not the way it should work.
Yeah, you're proving yourself every single time, right? From the first time you contact somebody to the last day you do business, and then even beyond that, you're always proving yourself because it's not a static world. It's always changing, and you know that the world's changing. Their internal politics are changing. Your internal politics, the economics of every deal. So I mean, that's one of the lessons I learned, and one of the most valuable lessons is to always never take a yes for granted. Never take a no for granted. Never take a yes for granted because you're always continuously improving. Even if they said, "Yeah, you agree, let's move forward." That next call, maybe it's a week later, maybe it's 2 weeks later. You kind of have to start that entire process over again to prove yourself because you don't know what's changed. You don't know if they remember every aspect of the deal because you're gonna remember everything that you said, but oftentimes the other people aren't. And you have to go through discovery. You have to go through follow-up. You have to just prove yourself over and over with every single conversation that you have with whether it's prospect, customer, ex-customer, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the mindset and the frame of mind that you bring and the experience that you deliver to your customer when you're more focused on the end result, because that's what they're actually buying, right? They're not buying the opportunity to sign a piece of paper or to write you a check, right? What they're buying is an outcome. And so if you stay focused on that outcome, it's just going to work better versus the only thing I ever ask you about. If discovery is only about when and how you're going to sign a contract, you erode trust, right? Like, wait, is that all you care about? All you care about is me doing this deal. You don't really actually care about my getting this end result that you're promising me that you're actually going to be able to deliver. It's a complete change, and it's going to increase your closing rates dramatically because you're not as focused on that. Of course, but it becomes part of the process. Look, in order for us to get you this end result, this is the timeline that we need to manage towards. And at this point, this is when we need to have the agreement in place so that I can get my team in place and we can make all of these other things happen, right? That's the way that communication shifts. And at that point, the quote unquote close is it's just part of it, right? It's in some ways kind of anticlimactic. For me, it takes a little bit of the fun out, but it's way more fun to be selling 200 and 300% of your quota than it is to be celebrating an occasional deal that you won.
So I got a question for you. What's one thing? Because I know as a sales rep, you're going to deal with rejection a lot. What is one thing that you would suggest that anybody can do to kind of deal with the objection? Because I think like accepting the fact that you're going to get told no, the overwhelming majority of the time, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. Because then like they like to start thinking it's personal. It's a personal attack against them. So how could you help somebody navigate that? What would you suggest?
Yeah, one of the conversations we've had a lot in some recent episodes on sales success stories is this mindset of disconnecting yourself from outcomes and focusing on the process and focusing on the inputs. And this was really came through in some sales development rep conversations that I had, where if you do all of the right things and you do them consistently, usually the outcomes take care of themselves. Right. And not always the way that you thought they would, right? We can't predict which deals we're going to win and what we're going to lose and who's going to tell us no. But the more that you can focus on the process and be proud of the way that you're executing and feel good about, you know what, I made that dial, I did that outreach, and not worrying about what that individual outcome is. Because and the more that you do this, the more you'll understand kind of your ratios and your percentages, and just understand that 40% of people, or whatever your percentage is, some number of people are going to tell me no. Some number of some percentage of those people are going to do it in a way that's probably going to make me feel bad. But you know what? It's part of the process. And the more that I'm willing to execute that process, the more that I'm going to win in the end. So I think it really comes down to that. And that gets you out of a lot of the peaks and valleys too, right? I see so many people in sales, and I used to live this myself. So, right, this isn't I'm better than everybody. It is, oh my gosh, I don't have enough pipeline. And so I hustle and I work really hard to do a bunch of prospecting and get this good pipeline going. And then I focus on the pipeline and I close a bunch of deals and I feel really good, but then I don't have pipeline again. And so you get in this peaks and valleys type of scenario versus just consistent execution day in, day out, week in, week out, that really starts to smooth out that curve. And I can tell you, your leadership is going to love it when you produce consistently, rather than, hey, I hit a home run and then I struck out 2 months and then I hit a home run. Like, even though the end result might be the same, it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to feel good. You're not going to get rewarded for that.
Yeah, you really have to enjoy the process. Enjoy the process, work the process, be a lover of that process. It's kind of like practice, right? You got to love practice. If you don't love the process, you're not going to like your day in and day out. And it's probably time to find something else where you love the process. And for different people, that's different things. But you hit the nail on the head right there. It's all about executing that process. And as long as you do that and improve where you need to improve and be able to identify that, then those peaks and valleys are gone, and it becomes a consistent, regular old thing of winning deals.
It's just discipline. It's really what it comes down to.
Just discipline. So you gave a little bit of advice there, but we have a lot of listeners that are new to the freight industry, but also new to sales as well. So people who are just coming in, maybe their first sales job, what's the most important thing to remember besides working the process?
You find the people who are doing it great and just do what they do, right? Find that top performer in your organization and shadow them and dig into the details of what are you doing and just try and replicate that. I mean, this isn't rocket science as you get going. And it's something that I try and deliver at scale through sales success stories, right? There's lots of conversations that you can listen to from people at the top that are at the top of their game, and we really just get into how are they structuring their day, how are they attacking all of these things. I think we learn the most from each other, and that's the biggest opportunity to improve right there.
It is. It definitely is. We had Rachel Heaps on a couple weeks ago, and she's first time in freight, but has a sales background and says exactly how she did it in her former employment is going out and finding, and she told a great story about that, going out and finding the number one producer and learning what they do. Learning what they do, taking on personal responsibility for what goes right and what's good, and certainly what goes wrong in sales, and just continuously improving. Chris?
Yeah. No. I mean, I agree with that. Like, I mean, you have to be in that constant pursuit of practicing. It's like Super Bowls last night. As we know, Tom Brady doesn't need to practice the cover 3 defense, you guys, at all. But he continuously goes through it because he's in that constant pursuit of achieving his goals and everything else. And you have to get comfortable in it. Like in dealing with objections, accept the fact that you're going to face them. So practice them. Get comfortable with it so you can navigate through them more efficiently, as opposed to just hanging up the phone. Maximize our time with it.
So Scott, before you leave us, you've interviewed scores, hundreds of top 1% performers. What are one or two that really stick out in your mind? Maybe some of the best stories.
Oh, there's a lot of good ones. Honestly, the recent stuff, it's always, I love the ones that just happened. So the conversation with Katie Jane Bailey and talking about what it means to be part of a world-class sales team, and so much of that conversation was great. Tomorrow there will be an episode with Alex Bruschi, and his story is amazing. He found my podcast. We had a conversation in 2018. He'd just been fired. He was at the bottom, didn't know where to go. He calls me about 2 months ago and says, Scott, I don't know if you remember that conversation. I really dug into your show. Now I'm number one. And not only is he number one, he's outselling entire teams of 3 and 4 people by himself. So, it's this stuff works. And there's just so much. Dig in, find the stuff that works for you, and kind of find your people and what resonates. Thanks for having me, guys. I got to run.
Oh, you bet. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
So Scott Ingram, Sales Success Media, and publisher of several books. We'll send one of those books out right now. Chris Jolly, can you give me a number between 1 and 137? Or 117, I should say.
Let's go with 94.
Any of them. 94?
94.
David Brown. So David Brown, one of the books that Scott publishes, I'll send that out to you. I'll tag you into the recap of the show that we have right here coming up. Fascinating conversation, though. I always like learning from the best. That's why we like sports so much, I think, is watching the best. And we all want to learn from the best, and those people are out there. They're everywhere. Every company has their number one salesperson, and if you haven't met them, it's probably time to go introduce yourself.
No, I agree, and I think you do. You watch sports and everything else, and they practice. All the top performing individuals on this earth practice. And there's something, they don't just wake up and are that good. That's earned.
They love it. Right?
Yes.
And then that's work in the process. That's what it is. If you don't like getting up and going to the driving range, you're probably not going to be a good golfer, right?
Correct.
If you don't want to go out and play, practice, put in all the hard work, go through all the pains, feel uncomfortable, awkward, all of that, you're not going to be a good golfer. And that kind of anything in life is the same thing. If you don't want to get on the phone, if you don't want to actually go out and make sales, if you're trepidatious about that, if you don't want to get on video, right, you're probably not going to get the benefits of doing that. It's all about just enjoying the process and working that.
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing that scares you the most about the set, whether it's video or what, do that one. Do that one and just get rid of that, because it's all subconscious. You're the only one who's afraid of putting it together, and it's who cares? You might not, you're not going to sound great. You're not going to sound great right away. That's fine, but you have to practice it. You have to do what's different. Just like Scott was talking about, 300 people reached out to him. He remembers 3 because what they did was different. So take that into consideration when you're going through this afternoon or tomorrow or the rest of the week and you're going through your prospects. You know what? We all have the great technology in our head. We're all staring at our phone all day anyways. Yeah. Take a 10-second clip on there. Even if it's start small if you have to. Introduce yourself. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. My name is Chris Jolly. I'm the founder of C. Jolly Freight Consulting, LLC. I wanted to introduce myself. Dude, at the end of the day, you guys, either they remember you or they don't. And that's it. So.
All right, so Nick Romer, indeed, Kevin Hill, don't reinvent the wheel, replicate a system that works, copy the past. I think we both agree with that. We have a few seconds here. Coming up, we have Wednesday, we have the Pharma and Healthcare Supply Chain Summit. And then February 22nd through March 3rd, we have Global Supply Chain Week. Go to live.freightwaves.com to learn more about both of these events and to download Put That Coffee Down. You can find it on FreightWaves TV, tv.freightwaves.com, or LinkedIn, of course, right here live on demand on the video side, on the podcasting side, on Freightcast, or wherever you download your podcast. You can find it on Put That Coffee Down or Freightcast. Subscribe to Freightcast. You get all of our library of of podcasts with Dooner. So go ahead and go download that right now. And we're wrapping up the show right here. See you guys next week.
I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been reading all the war. And I've been shutting down the stars. When it rains and it pours. And I'm ready for some more.